Today's lesson is section P5 on our 5th day, so our last day of section P5, and it's simplifying expressions with negative exponents. So if you look at the expression we have here, it's x times the quantity 1 minus 2x to the negative 3/2 power plus the quantity 1 minus 2x to the negative 1/2 power. Now, typically in the past, anytime we have seen a negative exponent, that has told us that we need to move that to the denominator. For this case, though, we can't do that because we have this addition sign. All right, so that's something that's really big, that we cannot move those to the denominator because of that addition sign. So we're actually going to use a little bit of what we've done before, and that's factoring. Because if you look, notice how here's a term, there's my second term, and they each have this 1 minus 2x in common. So what we're going to do is factor that out since it's the same. So little hint off to the side is you always want to remove the smaller exponent, okay? So you always want to remove the smaller exponent. So let me erase all these colors here. So the smaller of the two exponents, remember these are negative values, so it's going to be negative 3/2. So I'm going to factor out a 1 minus 2x to the negative 3/2 power. Now remember, when we factor, that is like dividing out a number. When we divide like bases, we subtract the exponents. So that means I'm going to have an x still inside. Then I'm going to show the subtraction. But once you do this enough, you'll get used to it. So the original exponent was negative 3/2, and we are subtracting the exponent we removed, which is another negative 3/2. And then keep going. But if I factor it from one, I have to factor it from the other. So negative 1/2 minus a negative 3/2. Okay, it looks pretty complicated, but I promise it's not. All right, so my two negatives are going to change to positives there and there. So now let's actually do those. Oh, I have a different color. Okay, sorry, I just want to be consistent and keep the same color. So I'm going to rewrite this first one. So 1 minus 2x to the negative 3/2. And then on the inside here, if I have a negative 3/2 plus 3/2, that just gives me 0. Anything to the 0 power gives me 1. So that right there is just 1. And 1 times x is just x. Plus this right here, I have a negative 1/2 plus 3/2. So that gives me 2/2, which is just 1. So that means I have one of them left. And we generally don't write the exponent of 1. So now inside my brackets, I can just simplify. Since this is an addition sign, I don't need those parentheses. So 1 minus 2x to the negative 3/2 times the quantity x plus 1 minus 2x. Okay, I'm going to keep simplifying there. So 1 minus 2x to the negative 3/2 to the 1 minus x. All right, so now that I just have this term being multiplied by that term, there's just multiplication, I can now move that negative exponent to the denominator. So my fraction is going to be 1 minus x all over, make that a little straighter, 1 minus 2x to the positive 3/2 power. Now you could leave it in that form. Okay, we simplified it, we reduced it all that we could. Or you can rewrite it in radical form, because remember, fractional exponents are just radicals. So if you wrote it in radical form, 1 minus 2x to the 3rd power, and it would be the square root of that. So that would also be an acceptable answer. They may ask you for it in radical terms, and they may ask you for it in exponential terms. All right, so that's part A. All right, let's take a look at part B now. It's very similar. So again, I'm looking, all right, here's my first term, here's my second term, subtraction, so I can't just move them down. So what I have to do is factor out if they're like terms. X minus 3, x minus 3. Yes, they are like terms, so let's factor that out. So x minus 3, pull out the smaller exponent. So ask yourself, what's smaller, negative 1/2 or positive 1/2? Well, negative 1/2 is smaller. So we are left with 2x. Again, I will show the subtraction. Minus a negative 1/2 minus 3 times x minus 3, and then 1/2 minus, what did I factor out? A negative 1/2. So let's change all these to positives. All right, so we have x minus 3 to the negative 1/2 power. And then we have 2x, a negative 1/2 plus 1/2 is 0, so that whole thing goes away. Minus 3 times 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1, so that means I have one of them left. Again, simplify what's inside. Keep simplifying. Whoops. Now I could have written negative x plus 9. But I chose to write 9 minus x, so that way my first term is positive. But either way, it makes no difference. All right, since it's just being multiplied, two terms together, I can rewrite this as a fraction. So 9 minus x all over x minus 3 to the positive 1/2 power. So we could either do that, or we could do the square root of x minus 3. So either one is acceptable. Okay. All right, so I would highly recommend you pause the video, try the your turn, and then come back and check your work. I will write the answer down for you. And just so you know, it is okay to leave them, those radicals in the denominator, and not go through and rationalize it for these types of problems. All right, we have one more example. All right, so the only difference in this problem is we're going to be doing the same thing in the numerator, but now I already have something in the denominator. So whenever I move something down there, I just need to remember to keep what is already there. Okay, so it's really not that bad. It's pretty much the same thing, especially because I'm only going to work with the top for now. So 4 minus x squared, 4 minus x squared. Great, they're the same. So I'm going to factor that out. All right, what's smaller, positive 1/2 or negative 1/2? Well, negative 1/2 is smaller. Okay. Don't worry about the denominator. I will not forget it, I promise. I say that and watch me forget it now. All right, so two negatives side by side make them positive. This one here, 1/2 plus 1/2 becomes a 1. This one here becomes a 0, so that whole thing goes away. So our numerator, 4 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 times 4 minus x squared plus x squared. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write this over the denominator. All right, so in my next step, I'm going to simplify all this jazz here, and I'm going to move my negative exponent to the denominator. So a negative x squared plus a positive x squared, well, they go away. So in the numerator, I'm just left with 4. In the denominator, I'm moving my 4 minus x squared to the positive 1/2 power times 4 minus x squared. All right, that exponent is 1. Well, now again that I have like bases, I'm multiplying them, so I need to add the exponents. So 1 plus 1/2 is 1 1/2, or 3/2. We prefer them as improper fractions. So I have 4 to the negative 4 minus x squared to the 3/2 power. Or you could do it as 4 over 4 minus x squared to the 3rd power and the square root of that. All right, so the one thing I like about these videos is you guys are able to pause, go back, rewatch it. So please, please, please do that if you need to. I mean, you guys are responsible for learning this, so please make sure you understand. And if not, send me a message on Remind. I will happily answer. All right, this one is done the same way. Don't let it confuse you. It's easier because there's not expressions, it's just x. So I will write the final answer for you that you need to try to get. Okay, so there's your final answer. Let me know if you have any questions.